The New York Rangers have made a couple of moves recently, and they're hoping to get back in the right track. Hopefully, this will help them. What's going on, guys? Jay Hoyt back with you. Today, welcome back to NHL 25. We're back here on Online Versus, and we're playing as the Rangers because this is who we're talking about today, as they made a couple of interesting moves in the last few days, and I wanted to kind of break down, some of this and kind of, what this means for the Rangers going forward. So it all started with a trade on December 5th that saw them trading away their captain, Jacob Trouba, over to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for, I'm going to butcher this one, is it Urho Vakanainen? Something to that effect, and along with a 4th round draft pick, which is a conditional draft pick. Is that what I'm seeing? So I couldn't find what the actual conditions of this trade are. It's probably like some kind of like games played or points or, whatever it is. But either way, they traded away their captain, Jacob Trouba, in this one, aiming to kind of, clear all of that salary, right? $8 million for 2 more years left on that, which now Trouba goes over to the Anaheim squad and is instantly making the most amount of money on their entire roster. So yeah, he had this year $8 million, next year $8 million, and then in 26-27, he would be a pending UFA. So what this means for the Rangers, though, they get back a player that isn't really projected to do much for them, realistically. Like, he's been a okay player, but realistically, he hasn't really played a ton, realistically, right? And last year, he played 68 games, had 14 points. Not bad, right? I think he's more of like a traditional, like, stay-at-home defensive defenseman type style. Because the year before, he played 24 games, had 2 points, minus 16. Year before, he split it between Boston and Anaheim. Combined played, what is that, 23, 29, it's like 50-something odd games, but less than 10 points split between the AHL and the NHL. Or no, 14 points split between the AHL and NHL. So, like, he's not a point getter. He's kind of like a stay-at-home defensive defenseman. I'm guessing probably penalty killer type player. So they don't really get much from this. I mean, they get a draft pick as well, but, draft picks are so hit or miss that, you don't really know what to expect. But Jacob Trouba, I mean, realistically, looking back at his past, he was consistently a 20-plus, I'll say, point guy, playing top-line minutes, 20-plus minutes a night. Penalty minutes are there, obviously, but in all those situations, his last year in Winnipeg, he put up 50 points. Awesome. Since he came to the Rangers, his best year yet, has a couple years passed, at 39 points. But again, all 20-plus minutes, even 21, almost 22-plus minutes a night on average. And this year, he has 6 points. He's minus 3, right even at 20 minutes per night average, and 24 games played. So I did look at the projection of this, and he's projected to be 81 games played, 20 points, minus 10 at right now. So it's right about where he's been as far as his individual performance goes, but just something was disconnected in this locker room where they felt a change was needed, whether it was just the captaincy or if it was just him as a player, but he wasn't providing enough to keep him around and want to do, any better for them. Plus, the Rangers have a lot of good young talent. And when you take a look at the roster, they have some of the older players as well, with, like Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, Trocheck. But then you look at the guys like Filipino, Capo Alexi Lafreniere, even, I guess, Will Cooley. I mean, Jimmy Vesey's not young anymore. But those types of guys, right? Their defense is all young, ready to win. They just signed, which is the next big thing we're going to talk about. They just re-signed Igor Shesterkin, 8 years, $11.5 million. So obviously they signed their goalie. They have a good, young, solid defensive core who is just kind of a little underperforming, I guess you'd call it. And then you have still a solid forward group, just the wins aren't there. But not totally, right? When you look at the Rangers right now, sorry if I'm being whited out here, but the Rangers right now, where is the record? 14-11-1. They're 4th in the Metro. So, like, they're not in a terrible spot by any means. So, if you look at their standings, right, they, I guess, are tied for 4th with the Islanders, but they're also 2 points away from the bottom of the Metro, 6 points off the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and let's see, 18 points is the lowest, so what's that, 11 points off from the bottom of the league. So, it's still, like, early in the season. Like, we're what, a third of the way? Like 27, 28, 29 games. What, 26 through 30 games or so played? Yeah, right around. Yeah, 25 through 30 games played. So, I mean, what's that math? It's got to be like a third, right? Math. So, they're not doing terrible. Like, they're not like, Chicago where they're 8-17-2, on a big losing spree and just nothing's going right for you. Like, they're still 4th. But then you take a look at the roster, and you have half a roster who is just filled with a bunch of people not doing too much of anything. So you have Panarin as your team leader right now, 34 points, 26 games played, 15 goals. Okay, awesome. You have Adam Fox as your top line right defenseman, 22 points, 0 goals, but 22 assists, 26 games played. Still been one of your most solid players. Will Cooley, which you wouldn't expect a lot from, he's got 21 points, playing on I don't even know what line. Then you have Zibanejad, probably a little bit under what you want. Same thing with Lafreniere. Trocheck at 17 points, so I mean, not terrible. Riley, Kakko, even like Kreider, I would say was kind of underperforming, like big time. Like he's got 10 goals, but 11 points overall, so I guess you guys say it's a little bit underperforming. Filipino missed a few games, but he's still at 10 points. I think he's back in the lineup. But then guys like Braden Schneider, Zach Jones, I mean, Trouba's on there still, but Miller, I mean, just a bunch of guys. Then you have like the bottom line players that, I mean, are not expected to get a lot of points, but something seems to be missing there, and I don't know what it is. Because even when you look at the goaltenders, right? Shesterkin, 9-9-1, 2.99 goals against, save percentage of a 908. Quick, 8 games played, 5-2, 2.5 goals against. Like, that's not bad. 9-15 save percentage. So they're not doing bad. They're not doing great, but they're not doing bad. They're just kind of doing like middle of the pack, slightly above 500. So I don't know if a massive change was really needed for these guys. Just kind of like just hit the reset button, and maybe that is part of trading away Trouba, is just kind of hitting a slight reset and refocusing and getting back in the action. But for the most part, I mean, these guys have everything they need to win. They have scoring, they have good young talent, they have solid goaltending, they have a solid coach. I don't know what else you could possibly need. And as far as Shesterkin goes, we saw a couple of other contracts with some star goaltenders around the 8 years, 8.5, 8.2, 8, what was, I'm trying to think of Connor Hellebuck's. But his was relatively big as well, up in the 8, I think, was it 9 or just mid-8s? I'm not exactly sure. Shesterkin's, though, $11.5 million. That is insane, right? So he's been your best player, and, arguably, I should say, arguably. But to pay a goalie $11.5 million is insane to me. Like, yes, he's worth it, but at the same time, like, I would have really pushed for, down in where the other contracts were, and probably not gone above 10 million, because that's a good amount of money you could have saved and added to your roster. I don't know how much salary cap they have. Can I see that on here? How much salary do these guys have? It's got to be on this page somewhere. Right here. They have $6.6 million right now. And that's before Lafreniere's contract, his extension starts next year. You have Shesterkin's new contract starting next year, which bumps up $6.5 million or whatever that is, or not 7. That'd be 6. Yeah, a little under $6 million. Lafreniere jumps up about 5.125, but then you still have to pay Riley Smith if you want to keep him, Paco if you keep him around. I guess some other guys that are RFAs. Jimmy Vesey needs to be re-signed next year. Ryan Lindgren needs to re-sign next year. Keandre Miller, the guy they just traded for, Zach Jones, and Jonathan Quick's up next year as well. So you got some money. Now you just got to do something with it, right? You have players that are on your team that all are getting paid some pretty big bucks. Just one of those situations like Boston when they first started this year. Just something's not clicking. Maybe some line changes, maybe some role changes, switch something around. And most likely, something will start to work and then run with it. And then you should be in a fine spot. Like I said, it's not like you're bottom of the league. You're still doing fine enough. You're just not doing what you expect to be, you know, the typical Rangers level of being one of the dominant teams in the league. So I don't know if there's any more big moves that need to be made, but if there is, I don't really know what you would do unless you have some other talent you really want to bring in. But for the most part, I feel like they're in still a really good spot. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you did enjoy, hit the like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, guys, we'll see you in the next one.